welcome Nitin ji and Swati ji.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure to have you here with us. So I will focus on asking questions related to like this event, which is focusing on the BFSI and financial inclusion. So we'll start with you, Nitin ji, that you have been working with the government and you have worked at various levels at the district level and also at the state government level, and you have worked across departments. So how has have you seen evolution of digital payments in the government to citizen, government to business, or government to government evolving in the last decade, like last 10 years?
Thank you so much, Ravi ji. Thank you, Krishna, for a very nice introduction. When I joined, in fact, let me just tell you about my educational background. I am an engineer. I've done my MBA from Bangalore. After that, I was working as an investment banker, and then I decided to come to this side. So having seen things on the other side, I realized that there's a whole perspective change that comes in when we are implementing things in remote areas of say Podi, where I started earlier, and Almora, where I was district magistrate. So these are small dots on the map, which you've seen probably, and some people are not even aware of. But there are actual people sitting over there, and who will probably be decades back, in terms of their awareness level, in terms of financial inclusion when we are talking about. And when I joined over there, so I was very amazed, about how people in the district headquarters did not even have bank accounts, how they were using savings, in very different formats. And there were traditional saving instruments. Nobody was accessing the banks. So our first target, when we joined, initially we used to hold these financial literacy campaigns, financial literacy, jahan pe hum unko jaakar we would tell them about what a bank account is and how would it benefit people out there. So we used to trek for 10 to 15 kilometers, hold Janta Darbar kind of a scenario over there, and there would be a specific financial literacy campaign that would be carried out. And when I see it over here, a decade later, I see everybody's aware about it. First thing is the awareness level has improved a lot. A lot of bank accounts have also been opened post the JDY, Jandan Yojana, which we talk about. I think there has been at least the access of banks to the last mile connectivity that we talk about. The last mile has been reached. We have a lot of rural branches, which are not making profits, but which are there for a particular social reason, not for profit per se. So we see a lot of people who were unbanked having the access to banking facilities, but yet in terms of penetration, where we have reached a certain optimum level, in terms of instruments that could be used to that could be provided to them, say in terms of credit instruments, in terms of loan access, or in terms of using the net banking transaction. I think there is some sort of skepticism, and that skepticism arises also from what word of mouth, sort of what we hear. And the WhatsApp, we always see these messages, itne rupe chori ho gaye, some sort of that background to it. So we see, somebody has lost some 20,000 rupees because he gave his password to somebody, and there has been a constant decline in the number of transactions that are being made through the ATM. People have actually gone back to keeping their savings in the form of traditional instruments again. So I feel cybersecurity is a challenge that I see in terms of the access of new instruments that could be made. Secondly is of course the access of new instruments that I talked about, which should be made so that people are made more entrepreneurial, and if I could talk about my take away from the rural India, then I would really want to see what happens in one table. Say suppose there is an entrepreneur sitting on the front table, the back table, the other tables would also want to do the same thing. So you just have to create 5 or 6 entrepreneurs in the village, and you'll find the whole village following suit. I think Swati would also like to
Yeah.
add.
I will ask her a bit of a different question, slightly different. Uh, I will specifically request her to speak about government payments, government employees payments. I have read that around 30 years back, 40 years back, like government employees used to have salaries in cash. Then it went to check, and now it is perhaps online happening. And similarly, like contractors being paid through checks and then being paid online, and especially in the COVID, a lot of government departments have gone into for digital payments. So how has the whole experience of you were also earlier district magistrate, and you were also handling one of the state PSUs regarding tourism. So you would be like paying to contractors, to vendors, and stuff like that. So that whole payment scenario, how it has evolved in front of your eyes in last 10 years, and how it has impacted the stakeholders who work with the government.
Okay, thank you, Ravi ji, for having us here. And that's a very interesting question because the scenario has changed in the last 10, 11 years I have been in the service, because earlier we used to, cash payment was very much acceptable to everybody, to the government as well as to the business, to the customers, to the clients, and to the people in general. But then over a period of time, as the Jan accounts were opened, then it was like mandatory on us ki, we have to make only the digital payments. And then slowly and steadily, even the Manrega payments, even 500 rupees now is the time when we are making even 500 rupees everything online. And then while I remember 2017-18, I was the CDO. That was the time when we were struggling with the Aadhaar enabled payment system, because some Aadhaar was linked to some other banks, and then sometimes money used to be transferred to the other bank. Those were the teething troubles of the digital transactions. But then now around 2020-21, I've observed that all of these teething troubles are over, and now we are very seamlessly transferring everything to the contractors, as you said, to the people, to Manrega wage laborers, everybody. We are making all of the transactions online. But then again, once the transactions are online, we definitely have credit to the, we definitely have access to the bank accounts. But then when we talk about credit and savings, again, my personal experience has been we have a lot of ground to cover yet, because sometimes I'll just tell you an incident. When 2018 I joined in Chamoli, a very old lady came to me, and she had some 5,000-6,000 rupee notes, the old notes which were in currency before the demonetization. So she wanted me to exchange those notes in 2018 after the demonetization in 2016. So I just asked her, how did you get these get these notes? So she told me, okay, in rural India they have those kacha houses where they have those kacha roofs. So she had saved this money, this 6,000-7,000 rupee notes in that kacha house, the roof of their own kacha house. So she probably again wanted to save something over there. So once she opened it, she found these notes lying over there, and then she remembered, okay, I had these savings, and then she wanted me to get it exchanged through something. So my point is that the saving instruments, although she also had the bank accounts, but then she did not save it into the accounts, because probably some of them have the feelings when they need it, probably the banks are too far, probably they don't have that trust in the banks still. So they get their money in the bank, but then they take it out and then they save it in such primitive ways. Again, in the rural India, again, when you go there, you might have seen some houses under construction. So initially we used to wonder, okay, so why are these houses not done? Are these PMAY houses? Have the people run out of money? So what is the reason? But then these are later on, when I found many such houses, I realized when I talked to them that this is also means of savings for the people. When they have a small, suppose they have saved something, they have saved enough only to buy some bricks, some cement, something, some building material, and raise two walls of the houses. So they take some days of leave, they go back to their villages, they they erect 2 walls. So that is also means of savings for them, which is not an efficient means, obviously, because 2 walls will not even be used for living. 2 walls cannot even be is not even a liquid form of saving. They cannot get anything by selling those 2 walls, but then still they save in those forms. So ultimately, I think that we also have to devise solutions to how we can take these saving instruments to the poor. And not only that, in fact, they save in these forms because they have trust that they will be able to make something out of it. Like, there's also an example, there's also a study which was conducted in the southern part of India, I remember. So there they had found that people also save in the form of bullocks. Bullocks are used for farming. So suppose they have saved some money, and they think, okay, let me purchase one bullock, and I will use it, I will sell it, and I will use the money whenever I need it. So that is also, and they do it because they have an internal feeling that, okay, maybe I'll not have access to the credit, which is also true to a certain extent, and that is why they have dependence for their own self dependence. They purchase bullocks, and they purchase just one bullock because they don't have money for the second bullock. So it is not even used for their own utility, because you need 2 bullocks for farming. They purchase just one, and whenever they need money, they sell it. So these are the, and sometimes what happens when they need money, probably when the rains fail or something, if they suffer from some shocks, then probably the entire village needs money, and then all of them save through this instrument only. And then there's an excess of bullocks in the market, and then they probably don't even realize that much of amount by selling those bullocks. So these are the credit constraints which the villagers face, and I think that is a very big market to target, because it's not like people can't save, and it's also not like people are not entrepreneurial enough, because generally we also worked in rural areas, so banks also have their own reasons not to lend to the poor. They think the default rates are high, their transaction cost, obviously their fixed cost is very high if they lend to the poor. But then these are the instruments which they should tap this market, and they should devise more innovative instruments. One more example, in Chennai, the fruit sellers generally borrow, like there was an example of fruit sellers wherein they purchase fruits worth 950 rupees, but then they pay 1000 rupees to the sellers, because the 50 rupees is the interest rate which they are charging. I mean, they are paying 50 rupees for 1000 rupees, which is 5% of interest per day. So this is a very exorbitant rate of interest, and if they are able to pay this 5% per day, that means they are earning more than 5% per day. So the banks should target these kind of people. They are definitely making 10-12% of profit per day. That is why they are able to pay so much. So I would suggest that we need, like, microcredit came as a very innovative instrument. So something similar to that, and something uh, like which is technology friendly, like bank correspondent, because technology also cannot penetrate overnight. So you need somebody like banking correspondents who can be empowered technologically, and then they can probably take these instruments, because bank accounts have already reached. Now we need to take these instruments to the poor, which is the untapped potential, and it is socially also equitable. Not only socially, rather it is commercially also very viable and very productive, if we can think of technological solutions to these problems which still exist.
Fantastic, Swati. I think you have just highlighted the real pain of rural India, and also the saving instruments you have talked about. I think no one in this room perhaps has experienced this, these types of saving instruments related to bullocks or other things. So and that is the next opportunity for the expansion of the financial inclusion drive, or the financial inclusion initiatives by the bankers and also by the fintechs who are trying to expand the whole market. Requesting Nitin to talk about, you are working with the government sector. So how does government sector engage with the banking ecosystem? What are the ways of like collaborations? Because like a lot of bankers who are sitting here, and they would be interested that how they can be part of various initiatives of the government. And there are various IT solution providers who are sitting here, so they would be interested also to know about it.
I think very critically, the banking sector is overburdened, specifically the government banks that I have interacted with. They already have their own targets to reach, and when the government tells them, do this, do that, so they are very, reluctant to do that. Okay? So, it's always this, because they have their own work. It is not the primary work for them. It is something which has been added on to their responsibilities. So, I think to a certain extent, there is a little reluctance, which is understandable. But I think once we always have to overcome this initial resistance, and once we, I think, overcome this initial resistance, we see fantastic results coming in from all the banks. So we in the districts, we have somebody known as a lead bank manager. There's a lead bank and there's a lead bank manager. The lead bank manager basically coordinates all the activities at the district level with all the banks and the district administration. So the banks have to do the yeoman service, if I could say, in terms of offering bank accounts to the unbanked. First of all, they were involved in doing that. All the bank accounts of several million people's million accounts were open, and I think they did a great job with that. Secondly, in terms of the subsidy component, now the government has a lot of schemes which have a certain subsidy component and certain loan component attached to it. Now, if I look at it, I could divide government schemes into pure subsidy. Now, pure subsidy scheme would basically involve something like PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, wherein the in the beneficiary account rupees 2,000 is credited for a particular quarter. So the banking sector here is involved only in that transaction, in verification of the accounts, creation of the accounts wherever the accounts are not there, and the verification of the accounts if the accounts are there, whether the proper beneficiary has been identified, and then henceforth the transfer of the money also takes in from the banking sector. So that is their involvement. Secondly, they are involved in a subsidy cum loaning component scheme. In those schemes, I think, critically, I think bankers also need to evaluate the credit score. And very often the beneficiaries who are selected, there might be political reasons for it, or somebody, who's come in, who doesn't have a credit rating score. So getting a good credit rating score in a rural area or in a semi-urban sort of area is a challenge. Now, if we look at it, if we have the normal curve over here, so, people who are actually looking for subsidies, who are actually looking for, help from the government, are small farmers or small entrepreneurs, small projects, somebody who's trying to set up a small health group or some sort of tailoring business or a beautician's shop. So they are the ones who are in access, in terms of for whom we are trying to create who we are trying to create as beneficiaries to the whole schemes over here. And that is where we feel that we need to push in, we need to give in those loans to those beneficiaries. But on the banking side, they are skeptical because they don't have credit score, and how to reconcile that, I think that becomes a clear challenge over here. So then we have to find somebody to back them, somebody from the rural, say village pradhan, gram pradhan, or some political dignitary from that particular place can take up and act as a guarantor for a particular beneficiary. So there are various ways to I think overcome that challenge, and that is where the banking and the administrative system needs to work very closely in tandem with each other. So we try and identify, we try and go to these different villages, get the beneficiary, try and identify where the lacuna is and how can that lacuna be overcome. But then there will be certain cases wherein that lacuna cannot be overcome, and then we have to look at the track record of beneficiary and see if that track record is not good enough. Then we have to say that we cannot give that particular loan, or we cannot give that particular subsidy to you. So these are the two ways we operate.
Fantastic, Nitin ji. Last question to Swati ji, that there is a whole segment of MSMEs and small traders, small organizations, small these initiatives are there across villages or towns, and you are at Uttarakhand, where it is there's a lot of stakeholders out there. So government like deals with all these people in like one way or the other. So how you can see a role of banking bankers, how like they can build a bridge between the government and the MSME sector, government and the government vendors, and the whole process of like there is a government tendering, people are submitting bids online, people are submitting their commitments online or the financial bids online, so and the payments happening online. So how is that government to business ecosystem uh, evolved in the last like 10 years thanks to the digital payments, and how do you see the future?
Uh, you rightly mentioned there are a lot of MSME related schemes as well as self-employment schemes which are dependent on the banks for their very existence, I would say, because a whole set of schemes like Prime Minister's Employment Guarantee Program, we also have a state program which is Mukhyamantri Swarozgar Yojana, Veer Chandra Gadwali Homestay Yojana. A lot of schemes are dependent on the bank subsidy for the scheme to function. And this is also deliberately done because in the government sectors also, when we discuss about the about encouragement to self-employment schemes, subsidy definitely is the easiest answer. We simply identify people and then we give them the subsidy and they start the operations. But then the default rates are very high in those cases. People are not serious because they are just being doled out some amount. So it is very important to take banks into consideration. So most of these schemes, almost all of these schemes are does have a subsidy component and a major component which is the loan component. So this ensures that the banks keep a check on them. The banking people go and they verify their microcredit plan, what they're going to do with with this loan, and they go and verify in the field as well. So I think banks have a very, and sometimes and mostly I have seen the reason for rejection is only that their CIBIL account is not like clean. They have already defaulted on such loans. Otherwise, in the hilly areas, I've seen banks generally cooperate, being very cooperative, and then they generally sanction loans because the loan amounts are very small, like 20,000, 25,000. So they are not very reluctant to sanction such loans. And then people are also very like supportive in hills, as I've seen, and they also the repayment rates are also very good. But then in some places, when I was in Haridwar, then there was distrust both from the people side as well as the banking side. So it is all the ecosystem, and the government has to play a very important role in such things to create a trust, to act as a bridge between the banks and the people, so that people also repay it, people also don't default, as well as that banks don't deny them loans on small little issues, and because they feel that poor people are not entrepreneurial enough. So banks have played a very very positive role in these self-employment schemes, and that is how they are surviving, and that is how people are also especially post COVID era, they have started a lot of self-employment initiatives only with the help of the bank. Thank you.
So I think with this we will like end this session here, and I thank Nitin and Swati for joining me here for a very very interesting session.